On this, we're joined in the studio by our Europe editor, Armen Georgian. Good to have you with us, Armen. Armen, this deal had been a long time coming.
Well, that's right. Remember that the Orban government is in place until early May. So in theory, Prime Minister Orban, who's been at loggerheads, of course, with the EU and with President Zelensky. Indeed, Zelensky features very prominently in the campaign and for the Hungarian election. He could have held out until the end. Orban could have vetoed this loan right until, in theory, the inauguration of Peter Magyar, who won the election. That's probably going to be on May the 9th, by the way. But I think Orban must have realized that there was a point where there was just no point, holding out anymore, because even if he'd held it up at this late stage, it would have just made a few weeks difference. The loan was obviously going to be approved. Peter Magyar is going to be inaugurated. He's going to have his government in place later in May, and he would have made sure anyway that this loan would have got over the line. So there was not much point resisting it. Of course, Haxi, there are still longer-term questions about the EU's independence from Russian oil and gas. We know that this same pipeline, Druzhba, also supplies Russian oil to Slovakia, and we've had news today from Robert Fico, the Prime Minister of Slovakia, hailing the resumption of that oil supply, those Russian oil supplies. So it's just a reminder that there are EU countries that want to keep relying on Russian oil, and the EU as a whole bloc is not about to just move away to cut itself off completely from Russian energy. And even Peter Magyar himself admits diversification of Hungary's energy sources is going to take time. But yes, in the short term, of course, this is a relief for EU leaders that they can now start dispersing this loan to Ukraine.
And Armen, this meeting is happening in Cyprus. That is in itself pretty significant given what's happening in the Middle East right now.
Yeah, I mean, there's obviously two sides to that. Firstly, Cyprus is holding the rotating presidency of the EU, so it's the host. But also, Cyprus came under an attack in March, so not long after the US-Israeli strikes on Iran began, there was a kind of revenge, if you will, strike by Iranian missiles which hit a British military base in Cyprus. And this is very much a test of the EU's solidarity and specifically of the EU's mutual defence clause, which is called Article 42.7 of the EU treaty for the geeks among you. But here's my guest on Talking Europe, our Talking Europe show, Thierry Breton, explaining this article and what it means for the EU.
By the way, we had one of our member states which have been impacted by this war, received missiles from Iran in Cyprus. So it's important because under Article 42.7, we need to help when a country is under attack. And yes, this country has been under attack. This is why, because for us, keeping our commitment is mandatory. I repeat, our commitment is mandatory. Trust for us is key.
So he's saying there it's a question of trust, and I think he's got a point. An EU member state, for example, Cyprus, has a right to know, can it trust other fellow EU members to defend it if it needs that help. Cyprus actually didn't activate this mutual defence clause 42.7 back in March, Haxi, but it's a very big question of what would happen if it does in the future, or what would indeed have happened if it had decided to activate it in March. And there we don't have an answer to that question. Of course, it's a hypothetical, but EU leaders in Cyprus are meant to try to answer the question of what would that help actually entail in practice. It's a very important point for the EU to clarify in the coming weeks, particularly, I think, in a world where NATO's Article 5, so NATO's mutual defence clause, is very much under question now. I mean, I don't think anyone seriously believes that if Russian forces tried a limited incursion into Estonia, in Narva, where Russian speakers live, that Donald Trump would rush to the defense of NATO or Estonia. I think that Article 5 is very, very much on paper now. So it's all the more important for the EU to see if it has the capacity to have this solidarity between EU members and concretely what that would actually look like.
Armen Georgian, thank you very much.